In today's Industry Pro interview, I sat down with Joe Bratcher. Now, it's always fun to hear what people's backstory is, how they got to where they are. And Joe's is wild. I mean, growing up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, first stop was the Army, next step was Broadway. And he came into the film and TV industry through acting and got into writing pretty quickly. He's survived 9 different strikes of the different unions, so he's got a lot of different perspective, a lot of great firsthand perspective. And while his life has been about the arts, it's really been about education as well. It's amazing that he was one of the creators of the UCLA extension program when it came to screenwriting. I mean, honestly, some of the first online classes about screenwriting in the world. Joe was behind that, and he has since transitioned to having his own writers group, which is to say writers group is undercutting it, underselling it. But the Twin Bridges writing salon has been around for decades at this point, and hundreds of people have been part of that community that Joe has built, having meetings at his house. Of course, it's always great to hear people's individual personal stories, but his perspective as a creative who's still creative, but now working as a consultant, as a guru of sorts. I don't think he would use that word, but he certainly has the knowledge and the ability to work with a wide variety of writers. And, we all have our own methods and styles and processes when it comes to our screenwriting. And he has to learn how to best approach each and every writer differently to best serve them. Also, Shayna Weber considers Joe to be her mentor. So there's one final name drop before we kick it over to the interview. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the very thoughtful Joe Bratcher.
I started taking tap dancing at 5 years old. And all for the next 70 years, I still tap dance every week. It's all storytelling. And dance was, I think, the first way to tell stories. And I always, whenever I performed in dance, I was telling a story. And so the acting, it made perfect sense, and you could get a job dancing and acting. And then when I started writing, for me, it's always been all about rhythm, the rhythm of the different characters. Everyone has a different rhythm, the rhythm of the genre. Every genre has a different rhythm. Every color has a rhythm. So it's all kind of the same thing, just different muscles. So tap dancing started it all. I was a member of Equity and SAG for years and years and years. Now SAG for 50 years and Writers Guild for 30. But we went on strike in 88. SAG did. And we had worked with a producer, and she said, "You guys want to try and write a movie of the week while you're on strike?" And absolutely. And that worked out great, because my wife and I, I'm a recent widower, and we were married for 37 years, and we started out writing partners. And so we wrote a script and a movie of the week. And then UCLA asked us if we would come and teach at their writers, whatever you want to call it, Writers Emporium, advanced writers. So anyway, we did that for 9 years, and that's where it started. I married Judy Farrell, who was married to Mike Farrell on MASH. Okay, Judy Farrell was Nurse Abel on MASH. They had 2 children, Mike and Aaron. Mike was married to Shelley Fabre, and I'm married to Judy Farrell. Well, as all blended families do, you go nuts. And so it was Mike and Shelley and the 2 kids and Judy and I. And we had serious meetings every Saturday morning with a psychiatrist or psychologist. And we got to knowing each other really well. And we thought, wouldn't this make a great series? Okay, now this is one of those stories you go, thank you. So anyway, we started talking to Mike, and Mike had worked on MASH with Thad Mumford, obviously the star right there. So we wrote a series called Mac and Me, about my younger years in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about having a dear friend who was a concierge at a hotel where I threw paper out. If I leave something out, forgive me. And he was a black man. And he became my best pal. Well, our friendship became and sold to ABC a series called Mac and Me. And Mike was the executive producer. Judy and I wrote it. Thad Mumford was the co-creator. And we were, Guillaume was going to star in it. And we were going to be on at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights. It had sold. We had agents. I never had thought about writing. And all of a sudden, you know, we're pitching to ABC and we have a series. And then the first Gulf War happened. And because it was film, they cut everything. So we went from like, couldn't get any better to couldn't get any worse. And I learned a very important lesson. Couldn't get any better and it can't get any worse because you never know what's going to happen, you know. So yeah, that was we sold the series. And then we sold a movie a week because we had an agent. I mean, it all just kind of clicked right together. And we got along best when we were writing. We had actually written a pilot with Thad so that we could walk in, and he was the showrunner on MASH. And by the time we got home from the pitch, we'd sold the pilot. I mean, it was like one of those miracles. And by that afternoon, we had an agent and a lawyer, and my goodness, we had an office at Universal. You know, just because we couldn't get along with the kids, they were driving us crazy. You know, we would go back to Tulsa and scout locations. Now, it was a dream come true. And Barry Kemp was the executive producer. So we were in good company. I got out early thinking, and within 2 months, I lied my way into the audition for No No Nanette. No one has ever heard of that. It was a wonderful old-time musical with lots of tap dancing. And there's somebody, you know, Equity, and I didn't know from Equity. So I just BS my way in, and I had the job that afternoon. And then they flew me out here to Los Angeles to join the company at the Amundsen and put me in. They didn't have time to put me in, so I just learned the steps. And so I went into the show, and they just pushed me around the stage. And so that was the beginning. So from out of the Army, 2 months later, I was doing No No Nanette. Then I went back to New York and got Lorelei playing the Palace Theater. And they pay you money. I think I got $400 a week. And in the Army, as a lieutenant, first lieutenant captain, I got $300 a month. So my first wife and I thought we were rich, and we were. And I was playing the Palace. It was my dream. I want to start with saying my parents were wonderful. My father was indeed a jock, and I'm sure he wanted to give birth to a jock, and he gave birth to a tap dancer. But he supported me 100%. And yeah, I was the outlier. You know, they talk about bullies. Well, be a tap dancer and see if you don't get bullied. You do. And but then in high school, all of a sudden, it was kind of cool to be, you know, in musical comedy. And that's kind of where I started my professional life, was during tap dancing for the Kiwanis and all this. And then I got a job at Six Flags Over Texas with Betty Buckley. And oh my goodness, it haven't stopped since 1969. I made my living starting doing commercials. My first wife was an agent, by the way, a very good agent. And so since I had a very good agent, I did a lot of commercials out of Chicago and then out of New York and out of here. And then you would do I think my first job was All in the Family. My second job was Laverne and Shirley. I played her boyfriend. My manager handled me and Sally Struthers and Eileen Brennan. And I met her because I who knows why, you know, it was much easier. There were only 3 networks. There were only 30 or 40 actors that you might go into a room and you knew them all. And you all had agents. So it was a different time, a different place, but it was wonderful. I never had to have a civilian job, but meaning not in the business. But it also helps to have a wife who's an agent. I didn't have any formal training. I mean, because what had happened was that I'd had knock on wood, a successful, up and down career as an actor out here in commercials and in all the shows, the series, Laverne's and Shirley's and All in the Family, BJ and the Bears. You did, and the soaps, you did guest stars on all these shows, and then you would do a movie or two in a year. And, slowly but surely, you would do a pilot, 3 pilots. 1 pilot got picked up. And so that you were building a career. And then we had a strike. And Judy, my wife, had taken a class at UCLA to write a movie the week with Joanna Kearns. They were pals, and they were going to write a movie. So I said, "Oh, that looks like I maybe can do that." So I was looking over her shoulder. And then we went on strike with the SAG, and one of the producers that we had made friends with said, "Can you do this?" And you know what? It was just like choreography. You know, this one sounded like this, and the stories were. And my wife was a very good writer, so between the two of us, we could do it. It was something, you know. You had the knack. It was like, you know. So then we got that made, and then she got fired, the producer, and goes over to UCLA Extension, and said to us, "Would you guys be interested in teaching writing during your strike?" And sure. So by making up the class that we had to teach, the synopsis and all that you had to hand out, I learned the formatting and all exactly because I was having to teach it. So it turned out that we taught for 9 years at UCLA Extension, and I created the first online, way back when it was used like C-prompt, you know, online long-distance screenwriting class in 1994, 95. Took me 9 months, and I had about 25 people from all over the world. You go, this may be really something. You can talk to people in Japan and Hawaii and Europe, you know. And I was still very much in the business, so a lot of the lectures that we gave and the classes that we gave was letting them in on our lives, because we were constantly pitching, constantly trying to get work as writers. And I had the, you know, my idea about the rhythm and the way you approached it was different from some of the other lecturers, writers. So it was, you know, it was a nice alternative, and it worked. Not for everyone, but for a lot of people it worked. For 9 years it worked. So now I'm there about, you know, and I had become kind of, at least I thought I had become kind of important because I'd created the first, you know, and I was all with meetings and all this. And all of a sudden UCLA comes to us and says, "Well, we own everything that you're teaching." And we, all the writers, and especially, I'll never forget her, the poet instructor, went nuts because they didn't own anything. It was our proprietorial, you know, of our stuff. But no, they wanted to own it. Well, we had a big meeting, and she actually got up on the table and started jumping up and down and saying, "You don't own shit." And they didn't. And but we soon all got fired and released, and because they wanted to take over what we had created. Yeah, I know it got pretty contentious there for a while. But it was the first time I ever got fired. Not the last, but the first time. And you know, and so then we started here. So that, and somebody said to us, "Well, why don't you do it at your house?" Well, we went from, I think there were 6 people here the first 6 months or so, to about 125 students in maybe a year and a half. And this place was, it's just our house. And it was 6 days a week. 7 days a week, because Judy wouldn't teach on 7. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No Friday, twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday. So there was that was 15 to 16 people a class, and plus the online classes. So I had about, when we first started out for the first 10 or 15 years, maybe about 120, 130 students, and not so much students. Some of them were working actors, but it became, it was wonderful. That was 34 years ago, by the way. This will be our 35th year of doing this. Never ask anyone to come. I mean, it was always, people find their way there. Like, you know, somebody hears about it, and then I meet with them, and you get to know pretty quickly whether you want them part of your family. Because So I'll brag a little bit. This is a family. This is a very supportive artistic family. I took from all the dance classes I had been in and all the acting classes I had been in, the ones that worked the best for me were the ones that were supportive, the ones that weren't tearing you down, but building you up, not trying to change your story or your vision, but trying to give you the tools to make your vision be the best it possibly can be. And that worked. And, it's not brain surgery, I don't think, and that sometimes it is, I guess. But we had we laughed very hard, still laugh very hard, but take the work very seriously. It's always been that ever since I'm 5. The work, it's all about the work. That doesn't mean you can't have a cookie and laugh. The reason that we've been successful and for 34 years I never advertised. It's always been word of mouth. I've heard about this place and I will meet with people. I probably meet with 10 or 15 people a year and take 2. Now I meet with, I take 1. and it usually comes from Shana introducing them to me because she's met someone or some random thing. I want to throw this in. Shane and I were at some event and we met this wonderful young woman sitting at a table taking tickets. I don't know exactly how this happened. We've talked about it. And within 30 minutes, this most wonderful young woman, soon to be writer, wants to be a writer, we were talking and I gave her my email address. Well, she couldn't read it, so she gets in touch with you, I think, to get in touch with me. So now she's with us and she's wonderful. Random, she's supposed to be here and she's excellent. So that's why it's worked. The reason this works is because I think there needs to be one mentor in this situation. It's me. To get notes from your peers in a non-structured environment is dangerous. You're getting notes from someone who hasn't been sitting in the mentored chair. It's just their opinion. It's not that they're wrong. It's not that they're not good notes. It's just that it's their opinion rather than if you have a mentor, if you have someone who can guide the notes, doesn't mean we have very sophisticated notes. We have tough notes and it's all about the work. But I'm able, because I've done it professionally, right? And this is showing them how to be a professional. I can guide the notes and I can come in and explain it a little better. I can talk to the person afterwards and say, that note is too early. Also, if I give you a note and you're just starting, and it's a great note, but it's a note that you should get 2 months from now, well, what good does it do you? So as the mentor, my job is to control the focus and make, no, it's not about egos. The note is always about the work. It's not what you think is right. It's what you see. I have a suggestion. What if? A lot of what ifs. And then then you have, we do a lot of Zoom now since the pandemic, but there can be 25 great ideas coming up from that one what if. But notes from, also, this is a little bit thing that we do differently. I don't want people reading the scripts first. If I give you a script for class, I don't want you coming in with notes about what you think because you're one of my students or you're one of the members of the class. So what we do is we send out the scripts and the person casts it and we read it so that they hear it. Once again, it goes back to the rhythm. So rather than getting specific notes because of just what you think off the read, what we do is we hear it, we hear what works, what doesn't work, and then because I've been sitting here for 34 years, I know where to start the notes and what's working. And it's amazing, you really can hear, as does especially the new people, what's working and what's not working. So what you do is you focus in on what's working, right? And then kind of end this. I'm also, it's one thing to to have an idea of the entire script. You certainly need a mega idea, but you don't bite that. You don't take off that chunk. What you take it in smaller chunks. It's all oh, here we go. No, I don't have many rules, but a few. It's all character driven. You have one main character, and that person has to be as well developed as possible. And then you run them up a tree, and you throw stuff at them, and then there's all kinds of things. There's the hero's journey and all of this. But if you don't have a complete or close to complete character to start, and then slowly but surely the character starts talking to you, and you have this wonderful group of support people who have these incredibly wonderful ideas, and then you get to go back and you work on it, and then you bring it back, and we read it again, and you go, oh, and that worked, that popped, didn't it? Yeah. For me, it's after so many years, and I think for the people for whom it works, you can just hear it. If it's organic, if you have the prose, right? The prose, you set up the world, and the prose has a rhythm. The rhythm of the prose and the sense of the prose, or whatever, the exposition, has to match the sequence that you're in. So if it's a bang bang shoot 'em up, it would be more. If it's a love sequence, then it would be more legato, right? And then you come out of that, and the people who are talking, you've heard them, you've created them. So each person has a different rhythm, and one gets better at dialogue. People don't, you don't go, hi, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Let's have a conversation. What you do is you go into the conversation later, especially if they know each other, and that way they talk in their own specific rhythms. They can only answer in the way they can answer because of who they are. So it's organic and it's authentic. And to hear that read, when it's right, it just flows off the tongue. Here's one last thing. We don't act it. Then I have writers who read very well. But an actor is concerned about their point of view of their character, which is absolutely right, being an editor. But this is about writers, So you're interested in the entire spectrum of what's going on. And so that if it's on the page and my writers can read it and it makes sense, if it can make a spec script can make sense to them, well, they can certainly make sense to a reader, because a spec script is supposed, it gets you intellectually and viscerally. Both of those things are happening at the same time. So you can't tell them exactly what they're going to be thinking, because they need to bring themselves to it. And after 34 years, I'm constantly amazed at what these writers come up with, because they'll have notes and they'll go home and they'll think, and it's like, God, I never thought of that. I could never write that, good for you. And the entire room will either cry or laugh or go, ooh, no, that didn't work. Not an ooh, but, because everybody knows it. Nope, that was a speed bump, we call it. People come to me with scripts that they've already written. I read them. If I like them, I don't charge. I don't charge for that. That's to see if I want to work with them and they want to work with me. And usually it's not, I will tell them, the script isn't industry ready, and it needs to be, worked in our room, and this is how we would attack it. And they will either go, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, or they go, oh my God, yes, that's right. And I said, and if you think you're going to do it in 10 weeks, the answer is probably no. It's going to take you 6 months to a year. It just does, to get it industry ready, especially if they've not done much. But it can be a script that it's so good, and it's one more pass, it's two more passes, and they're looking for the next one. And we do, and because my wife and I were lucky, we did 30 minutes, we've done 60 minutes, and over the 34 years, man, there are a lot of people right now who are, especially into podcasts, which is the new deal. But we've done, lots of people have moved on to 30-minute episodic or 60-minute episodic, and each one is a different animal. takes different muscles, but it all comes from, it's all about character. I mean, it's everything, especially now. Do you think I can make this into a podcast? And the answer is, for me, is usually no, because you have no, it's not that your writings, if they're good, they don't have the tools yet. So the trick is, are you committed enough to come to something once a week for 10 weeks? We do 10-week sessions, offer 10-week sessions. And like we were just talking about, Clarissa, Shana's partner, has been with me for 19 years. I mean, and a couple of our huge, Mickey Dartry and Tobias Iaconis, oh my gosh, they've taken off. He was with me for 26 years. And there are people in here who have been with me for 20. But when I say been with me, it is a family. We, it's also, it's absolutely safe. There are no mistakes in this room. There are things that don't work, but there are no mistakes. And the moment I feel any kind of ego or somebody coming at somebody with an edge, well, they're just gone. I mean, I'm old enough to say thank you very much and write you a check. And this is a very, very safe place. And once again, Shana and her partner bring me ideas, and I go to myself, what are they talking about? Are you kidding me? Well, and 6 months later or a year later, you have a script that's not only is it good, it's like something that I couldn't even imagine. But but the heart of it is, the energy is the same. Characters, is it a good story? And and where do they go? There's 5 or 6 basic rules. Everything else is just from the heart and organic and intuitive. And again, you're right. I am lucky that I have an intuitive way to know what people, what they need. Everybody needs something different at a different time. And that's somehow or other, maybe it's from learning all those tap routines. I know what it is they need. So each person needs something different. I talk to them for an hour or so, and we look at their scripts, and then I'll throw out a couple of ideas, and I have maybe 2 or 3 exercises that are just kind of fun. But then all of a sudden, they're starting to trust, and I only ask for 3 or 4 pages or 5 pages. And then they bring it in, and so that the entire room understands where they're starting. So it's not just me, but maybe one of the writers will go, well, think about whatever. And what they've done is they've asked them to think about something they're not ready for yet. So my job as the mentor, because I know what they need, is I'll go, great idea, but let's pull it back for about a month and a half, because what they need to do is learn how to write 5 or 6 decent organic pages to that first act. It's one thing to know that there's a fat first act needed. It's another thing to have your characters discover the first act. It's always been there, but there's a huge difference between writing to the first act and discovering the first act. All the difference in the world. Same first act, but it's just, it's authentic, it's organic, and by that time you know who the main character is, you know the situation that they're in, how much baggage and how much pain they're in. Oh, here's another, I always say, write to the pain. And after 34 years, I still believe that more than ever. Everything is generated, great humor, whatever it is, but from the pain of the human experience. Not necessarily traumatic, awful, and you don't have to talk about it. But people, they deal from having to navigate this world we live in. Two ways. Oh, that's a good question. The first one is totally obnoxious and selfish. It's like, once again, I think of your friend. I went up to your friend at her wedding, and I didn't even know her. And as she was cutting the cake, I said, I'm going to give you a present of 10 weeks of my class. And she turns and looks at me and says, well, who are you? And I've never written, no, just intuition. You just about our friend April, right? Just sometimes you just kind of know you want to hang out with this person because it takes enormous commitment, an enormous amount of time on both parts. So you like them, and then you have them write 2 or 3 pages. Ah, and it may not look like normal chops, but you can see a sentence or two, that they're being honest. Oh, well, we can work with that because this group will make them honest. Oh, there's the other thing. This group keeps you honest, because I work with everybody I work with privately at least 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes more, oftentimes when they're starting more. And then we bring it in and see if it works. But it's also, they're in the room and you can feel their energy. Does the energy fit? Are they open to listening and learning and committing to learning the craft? Very important. You don't want to learn the craft. You don't want to put in the time. You're in the wrong business because it ain't about, it's all about the process. It ain't about the win. The win will come. But if you love the process and you love, here's when I know. It's when I'm working with them and we'll be working a paragraph, let's say. And all of a sudden I'm kind of, and they jump ahead 2 or 3 sentences. And they're already there before I take them there. And then they'll go, well, what about this, Joe? And I'll go, oh, you see they're embracing what it is that we've been working on. So now they're ahead of me. And so now I get to step back and I just start making suggestions. Well, what if you take this character and you put it okay. Because we've been line by line by line. And then I can relax and they're no longer the newbies. First of all, do I want to spend time with them? Because it's many hours. And if you don't, and I'm old enough to also go, you don't want toxic people in your life. You want people who make you smile and who are willing to do the work. That's the thing. More than a few have become family. And now I have, where I used to have 120 people, I now have 35. And mostly because it's just a joy. I mean, I'm working with people who amuse me and make me laugh and make me cry and push me. They also make me, I have a problem now. I have to come up with that, helpful, it's not Intro to Screenwriting 101. In 1988, my dad always told me you have 3 months worth of money in the bank that you can live on if you get in trouble. Well, we were out for 5 months in 88 and I lost every penny I had. And then, and my wife, I think we had done a couple of movies a week. We kind of on the B level. We were okay at ABC, but not NBC yet or something like that, however it worked. But we didn't get, and all the A writers, they had work immediately. So we didn't work for another 3 months. So we didn't have any new income for 8 months. All outgo, no income. And it took more than a few years to recover from that. So, and SAG, I was always lucky though. It wasn't so good, but you could work doing commercials. If it was a SAG strike, you were mostly striking the episodics and film and whatever, but not commercials. So you could make a living. But then the Writers Guild, man, that was a killer. And it's just awful. And we had to go out this time. It was the nexus. If we didn't get a decent contract, they were going to just chew us up and nobody was going to be able to make a living. Same with the SAG people right now. It's tough. And I don't, people lose their homes and people quit. Because you find out how difficult a career it is. It's a wonderful career. I've been doing it now for, 60 years. And I wouldn't change a minute of it. But and it's been mostly wonderful, but there have been some lean times. There were 5 times in my career that I was in a pilot that got picked up for 13, but they changed the president of NBC and he killed it. So what if, they bought 13, I was in the series, but it got kicked out. Though I had a series, the one I was writing on. What if that had gone and been successful? Well, I wouldn't be sitting here because I'd probably have a lot more money and be able to, relax more. But I've got to be able to, I was on Broadway and I was in touring companies and I was in the great early TV series. And I got to work with, James Garner. I worked with my heroes and I got to be in film. I was, on a film set for weeks and it was magic, and then I got to be on the set with Tobias and Mickey on something they wrote. And I was sitting with my, two buddies, my two kids, watching their script being made. And then they did 5 feet apart, which, and I still tap dance. Oh, no, and the plays. My wife and I were in plays together. So I've been very lucky doing, I played the Palace. I can remember being in Tulsa wanting to play the Palace. And I did. Now, did I become a musical star? No, but I got to play the Palace. And I signed with William Morris. That was good, there you go. And I have this. I have my family. My family right now are individuals in the group. They're all my family, but some of them, are just, they're so young. They're my kids. They're my friends. They're whatever. So yeah, I always knew. Somebody would tell me no, and you face plant, but you only get 24 hours, and then you get up and you go back to work. And this is just who I am. I have different parts of me. There's writing, there's dancing, there's all, but I couldn't do anything else. It never crosses my mind. The pain was just awful because you take it personally. You're to this, you're to that, but then it's just absolutely knowing that this is what you are meant to do. There's nothing else you can. Now you take side jobs occasionally if you need to, but what are you? Well, you're a writer, you're a dancer, you're this. And then my young people, some of them don't need to. I was very lucky. I didn't need to take side jobs, but different time. But nowadays, a lot of people don't come out with agents. The landscape has changed. But there's never, no, and I'm 77 now. Oh my God. I don't remember ever having one moment of this is not what I want to do. I feel incredibly lucky. And the best thing in the world is to be on a set. It's just magic. And the worst thing in the world is to be on a bad set. It's hell. It is the worst hell you've ever spent in your entire life. It all comes from up here. If up here is, if they're cool and it's the best week or day and if they're angry or you have rules that you can't look them in the eye and all that, it's the worst. But it's over. You don't have to deal with it. And you get to be my age and you don't even, because I still audition for parts for old men now. And it's like, well, I'm not working with that person. This life's too short.